If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Peer2Peer. My name is Jay, and today's special guest we have is Hannah. Hannah, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, thanks. How are you?
Can't complain.
It's as good as life could get.
Yep, it's as good as it's going to get. One of those days. All right, so let's get in. Oh, sorry, awkward moment.
I think there's a little bit of a lag, but it's fine. We'll deal with it.
Yeah, we'll work with it. So, yeah, tell me, what has your experience been like with mental health?
So it's been a bit of a weird journey. So I've been dealing with anxiety and depression since I was about 15, 16. So it's about 7, 8 years now. And at first, when I first started experiencing this, I didn't know what it was, and I tried speaking to like my mum about it, and I ended up going to see doctors, and none of them knew what to do at all. We're lucky in a way now that people are more aware of it, and they have a better idea of what's going on inside our heads. But I didn't know what the hell was going on, and I felt just a completely strange, I think it stemmed from just like me being a naturally very shy and insecure person. So it started off with those thoughts of like, oh, my friends don't like me, and it just made me feel like I was very alone. And then shit happened that caused everything to like spiral. But I think it got a lot worse before I was heading into uni. Because I remember the first time I went to go see a doctor about it, and I think this is what made me think, oh God, I can't be helped. There is something wrong with me. I went to the doctor and I tried explaining what I was feeling to her, and she said, okay, so what do you want me to do about it in the appointment? So that made me think, just like, oh Jesus, there's no getting out of this, and I can't be helped. Because the person you're supposed to go to for help, they're just like, I don't know what to do with you, you're a lost cause. So that made me feel 10 times worse. But yeah, it's been quite a weird road, but I'm on the road to recovery, I guess, or have been for a number of years now. I'm in a job that I love, and that's definitely helped with my confidence, and I'm a lot happier than I was. I'm a much happier person. Thank you to the serotonin uptake inhibitors that I've taken. I have a lot from the thank you to the antidepressants. Wouldn't be here without you. But yeah, I'm doing a lot better now than I was, but in the beginning, oh God. Oh God. Yeah. Yes, it was a very confusing time at the beginning. And you had I had that weird stage in the middle where it's like, okay, I know I'm dealing with something, but I don't know how to deal with it. And all of this sort of stuff was happening, and I was just having to try and deal with it. At times the anxiety would get so bad it would make me feel like I couldn't eat anything. So I would just not eat, because it was easier to risk not vomiting. This is a great start to this podcast. I'm talking already about not being able to eat and vomiting. Gee whiz, okay.
Yeah, we're off to a damn great start. I mean, already getting right into the meat of it.
I know. Damn. What else am I going to come out with?
Maybe a new album.
I feel like I'm rambling already.
Nah, you're doing great. You're doing really great, hon. So,
Rambling about nonsense.
no, this is not nonsense. I mean, this is your story. This is your, something that you've dealt with. I'm just really
Yeah.
curious to
Long
know,
story short, it's been wild.
yeah. Um, so I'm curious to know about like, because you said you really didn't know a whole lot about what you were dealing with. Was your family open about mental health, or is this something you had to navigate on your own?
It was something I very much had to navigate on my own because it's like nobody had a clue what I was talking about. And it was very difficult to talk about at first because it was like, how am I supposed to explain something when I don't understand what it is? Um, and it was very hard because even like I tried to open up to my mum about how I was feeling, and she didn't know what to do. Um, so it was it was a big process of like trying to figure out what the hell was going on in my head. Um, and all these different things keep happening. It's very confusing because it's like you're trying to fight something, and
Mm,
it's like you're trying to use the thing to fight the thing, if that makes sense.
yeah.
It's like you're trying to fight it, but the it you're fighting is your brain, is your own brain. You're trying to use the thing that you're fighting to fight it. Um, which is very, very strange. Yeah, very much a big learning process.
And no kidding, it's like trying to fight fire with fire, and the fire is
Yeah,
self-aware that
it
it
did
is the
feel like,
fire.
yeah, it did feel like for a very long time that it was, a battle with my own brain. And at times it did feel like, I mentioned with the whole not being able to eat and stuff, it was like my body and brain were separate because my body would be like, give me food, I want to eat something. And then your brain is just like, no, food bad, don't put that anywhere near me. So it did feel like I was fighting with myself a lot, which made things very hard. Because I was dealing with a lot of that stuff when I was doing my A levels in school. So that made it quite difficult. Um, but we learned to deal with it, and we're thankfully over that now. We don't do that anymore. So
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, because I know that eating disorders and having that on top of like having depression, anxiety, stuff like that, it can make just conquering that very difficult.
yeah, yeah. But I didn't even realize that it was a problem. It was just something that I'd gotten used to, and it wasn't until I'd spoken to one counselor about it, and I was speaking to her about like how ill it was kind of making me feel and how I felt like I couldn't do certain things. And it wasn't until she got me to start monitoring what I was eating throughout the day and how much that she was just like, okay, this is a problem. I didn't even consider that it could be some kind of eating disorder. And to be honest, I still don't. Because, I see things that people go through and what they deal with. And I think what was happening to me was nowhere near as bad as that. I just see it as some like weird symptom of my anxiety. But I think that was definitely a moment where I was just like, shit, this is bad, and this is something I need to get under control.
Yeah, it's good that you felt that compulsion to try to get answers, because I know a lot of people, when they're feeling like that, it's really hard to take that first step into getting help. So, um, did you draw on any kind of power within yourself to, go get help, or did it get to a point where you're just like, yeah, I need answers pronto?
It was it was very hard because the first time it felt like I had to get a lot of courage to actually go to a doctor and tell a complete stranger how I was feeling. And when I spoke to that first doctor and she just said, I don't know what to do, like what do you expect me to do about it? It does make you feel a bit helpless. So it was a long time after that. I actually went and saw another doctor, and again, they didn't do anything. And it wasn't until the third time I went to a doctor and I said, there is something wrong with me. This is something I can't do on my own, and I need some sort of help. So I actually, it's quite sad. I actually had to go into the doctor and say, like, I am thinking about killing myself. because I just can't deal with this anymore and it needs to change. So it was almost like I was going in there and begging them to do something, to put me on medication or whatever, um, to try and make me feel better. Because I was just like, I can't live like this for the rest of my life. This isn't a way to live. Um, and I didn't want to live with it. So I'm glad I finally got that help, but it did take a lot of pushing.
Yeah. Did you have did your family support you at all during this time?
Um, my mum was very supportive. She didn't so much understand it, and there are some things that they still don't understand. My dad again didn't really get it. So a lot of it did feel like I was on my own, and it felt like I had no one to turn to or talk to. It wasn't until I got to uni and there were another few friends that were dealing with anxiety and depression, and we were able to support each other through that. Um, but my mum and my sisters, they were as supportive as they could be when they don't understand what's going on. Um, but yeah, it was very difficult. A lot of it did feel like I was on my own. Part of it was because family didn't understand. It was very difficult to sort of explain to them, but I didn't fully understand it either. So it was difficult to explain what was going on. Um, but there was another part of me that was just like, I don't want to burden them with my problems.
Mm.
Like, they've got other stuff going on. They don't need to worry about what's going on in my head. Um,
Yeah, it's a clusterfuck.
yeah, it really is a clusterfuck. But it's like, when I went to see that first doctor, even though she was just like, I don't know what to do, because I was explaining, how confused I was and saying like I need some sort of help, I need to understand. And she referred me to some mental health team within the NHS. But I got a letter from her like a week later to say that they couldn't help me at that moment in time. And they said that I needed to go see a counsellor in school instead, even though I had already told her in that appointment our school didn't have one. We didn't have a school counsellor. The closest thing we had was like some careers advisor. So that wasn't going to help me at all. And I ended up having to go privately to get an actual counsellor. And even then, that wasn't a huge help. Um, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah,
So
I was actually going to say that sounds like you went through a hell of a process, just trying to get a
it,
diagnosis.
yeah, the NHS may be free, but it's not fucking easy. I'll tell you that for one. Um, so yeah, but even like I didn't know what label to put on it. I didn't know it had like a specific name until um, I think it was on the second doctor where he was just like, yeah, that sounds like you have anxiety and depression. But still, then he was just like, you're about to go off to uni, and I don't think it's a good idea to refer you to anybody down here. You should probably do it up there. And the university weren't much help either. Because I tried getting appointments with them, and they were just like, oh, sorry, we can't do that.
So, how did you, while you were like trying to get answers and to find a doctor and somebody that was willing to work with you, how did you cope with all that?
To be honest, I don't really know how I managed to cope with it. A lot of it, I think a lot of it was just trying to keep myself distracted. So I was playing a lot of video games and you know, just trying to take my mind off of the thing and pretend it didn't exist. Um, but I would isolate myself a lot. I stayed up in my room on my own. Um, and I would just try and keep my mind on other things. Really, I mean, when I was in school and dealing with it, I had homework and studying for exams. I had that sort of stuff to keep me busy and keep my mind occupied. Um, and it was a similar sort of thing with uni. It was like using work really and pouring myself into my work to distract myself and use that as some weird kind of coping mechanism. Um, but it was very, very weird. All of the things I was sort of dealing with, it was like I mentioned earlier, it was like I just had to get used to it. I
Mm.
didn't I just thought, well, this is my life now. This is something I have to adjust to. So I just learned to deal with it because I felt like it wasn't going to fix itself. And I felt like I was just going to be stuck like that forever.
Yeah, that's kind of like the American healthcare system in a nutshell. Oh man,
Honestly.
yeah. So after you got diagnosed, did you go through therapy at all? Did you go to like any like group meets or anything like that?
No, I didn't go into any group meets or anything. I had the counselor that my mum had actually sorted out for me. She'd found this lady online, and I was able to talk to her, and I kept that up for a while. But I think she was used to dealing with children,
Hmm.
and I was in university at that point. So her particular methods weren't too helpful. She was a lovely lady, but it it didn't feel like you know she would like I would go into meetings and she'd say, do you want to tell me how you're feeling by drawing it in this sand pit? And that sort of stuff wasn't going to be helpful to me. Um, so yeah, it was like it was nice to have someone to talk to that kind of understood it, but at the same time, it didn't feel like it was helpful.
Hmm. Gotcha. So it was
So
very much
yeah,
like hit and miss.
yeah, it was like it felt like just like, okay, I've managed to get a counselor. I can speak to somebody that understands. It felt like I was like on the road to recovery, and then I just hit a dead end.
Hmm.
And I was just thinking, well, okay, I am doomed. I am just going to be stuck in this forever. And it was just like it was going to be this endless loop. So when I I got like signed off from her and said that I was going to try and find counselling within the university. Um, because I was having to travel home to see this counsellor as well. So I said, I'm just going to try and find a counsellor within the university to try and help me. But that didn't end up working out either. So I was just like, well, we're doing this on our own then. we're just gonna try and do it ourselves. Uh, so
Yeah, so
yeah.
you
Oh
very much had to do like psychology DIY by yourself.
yeah. Basically it was just like looking up different things, and then it was actually helpful going to see that second doctor. And when I actually had a name for it, I wasn't just like, okay, this is just a thing that my body now does. It was like I had a reason for being the way I was and feeling the way I was and going through all of those things. So that was a bit better, but then things were happening and I still didn't know how to deal with it. um, it was very difficult. It was just a case of trying to figure out what the hell was going on and then try and work out the best way to deal with it. Um, Very much trial and error. But we got through it. I'm still here.
Yay, thank God for that.
Uh,
You're like, maybe not.
was it for the best, really? It's just like I got through it. Yay, I guess. Uh,
Yeah, so one thing that sucks about mental
uh,
health is like you go through so much crap and then a lot of it goes unnoticed.
yeah. But even now, I'm trying to think back and be just think like, what did I go through? Because that sort of stuff now, I've pushed a lot of it out of my mind because that's the sort of stuff I don't want to remember. Um, but the stuff I do remember, I just laugh at myself. I look back on it and I think like, what the hell was wrong with you? What were you doing? Um, like when my anxiety would get so bad in uni, I would just have to run out of lectures because my heart would just start beating and I would feel like I couldn't breathe. My face would get hot and I just felt like I just had this overwhelming feeling to just leave the room, and I would just go disappear somewhere in the university building. That was just a thing that I used to do, and I look back on it now and I'm just like, what the hell were you doing? Why did you just get up lecture? Oh my God,
That's relatable. I mean,
coping mechanism.
yeah, coping mechanisms. I mean, they can be kind of awkward.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean, now I just like I make fun of myself. That's a coping mechanism. I just I just in uni just be like, nope, bye, see ya, I'm off.
yeah,
Literally
that
trying to run away from problems, and then I realize that the problem is inside my body. I'm just like, oh fuck, I can't escape this.
yeah, that's a hell of a way to look at it, and that's something I totally relate to.
It just I'd look back on it just like I was such a mess. What the hell was I doing? Um, I won't make fun of high school me because high school me was still trying to like navigate what the hell was going on and was it was a mix of being like there is definitely something wrong with me. Um, yeah, it was weird. High school Hannah was very alone and trying to deal with her own problems whilst also not trying to burden others. And yeah,
Yeah, I
I feel
feel
like
that.
I'm just like waffling about nothing and like I'm not making any sense at all
Oh
because
no,
I
you're
haven't
doing
thought about this in
good.
any kind of structured way. I've just come out and just word vomited everything. Like there's no structure at all.
Hey, there's practically no structure on this podcast. I ask questions and then we just talk.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, no,
Oh my
nothing
gosh. I mean,
nothing
it
too
just goes to
formal.
show what mess my life is.
Wow.
Good.
Well, if you think it's a mess, it's a beautiful mess.
Well, a beautiful mess. That's a good way to think of it. The way I look at it is my life was a clusterfuck then, and my life is still a clusterfuck now, but it's just a bit better.
I
It's a
mean,
bit more of an organized clusterfuck now.
well, it's like I was telling you earlier before the podcast. I had a PTSD breakdown over a fucking leaf, so don't feel bad. Trust
Oh
me,
Lord.
had some weird experiences with
Mm.
mental health, and that was definitely top five. Well,
It makes you do some weird things, man.
yeah, what would you say is the weirdest thing that you ended up doing because of your mental health?
I mean, the running out of lectures was pretty weird, and just you know, just going and sitting under like the stairs or something on the second floor in a uni building. That's quite funny. Um, I don't know. That's probably as weird as it got. In my first year of uni, I was living in the actual uni accommodation. I would just keep myself hid away because it was like I was like a vampire. It's like no, don't want to see the light. Um, I just felt like um, you know, it's like kind of deep and actually kind of sad. But I was just like I've got so many problems, and already because I felt so alone from school and feeling like I had nobody in school, I was just like, they're all gonna dislike me too, so there's no point striking up any friendships with anybody. And I just hid myself away, and I was just like, I don't, I shouldn't let anybody be friends with me because I'm a mess. Um, but I look back on that now, I'm just like, why would you do that? Like, why did your brain make you think that? What are some other weird things I've done? I don't know. It's hard to think of now because I've like blocked out all of those memories. But when I think about things like not being able to eat and all that sort of stuff, it's like my own brain made me do that. But it's just really bizarre to think about. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm trying to think about the weirdest thing I had a breakdown over.
it kind of ties back into that whole
It wasn't
thing
a
of
leaf.
like, are you your brain or is your brain you? Like that kind of question.
Yeah, it felt like I was separate from my brain, and that was the way I would try and describe it to like the latest doctor I went to. I say latest. Um, the third doctor I went to see about it, I was just saying like I feel like I'm a crazy person. I feel like I'm insane because it feels like there's my brain and then there's me, or like there's my body and then there's me. It felt like I was a completely separate entity, and it was so bizarre just feeling like there were two different things going on, like my body would want one thing and my brain would want another. It's just it was such a weird way to live. um but it got so bad at a point it felt like I couldn't even be around family. Like I would there was the one Christmas we went to my older sister's house, and like my niece and my nephews were there, and we had like all of the family, so my mum, all of my sisters, my dad, we were all there. And after a while it just felt like I couldn't deal with it. Like it was like all of the noise was just like closing in on me, and it felt like it again, I felt like I had that overwhelming feeling to just leave. And it's like that was my own family, and it was like my body was making me feel like I was unsafe in that situation, and like I couldn't be around them. And they are the people that I love more than anything in the world, and I feel like I couldn't be there. But it's like it was like it was like I myself wanted to be there. It's just like I love my family and I want to be around my family, and then it's like brain is going, no, noise, people, bad, get away. It was a very, very confusing time of my life, and I'm glad I don't deal with that as much anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, is this something that you still commonly deal with, or do you have more coping skills with it now?
I mean, I don't really deal with that as much anymore. I'm still, very sensitive to certain things. So if I'm in a place and there's like a lot of loud noise, I do have to sort of feel like, oh, okay, I do get a bit worried, but I just have to, try and focus on other things. I do try and focus on my breathing. A lot of times I'll end up going into a panic out of absolutely nowhere, and I find that it's helpful to actually remove myself from the situation, and I do just focus on my breathing. So I try to like uh, breathe in for 3, hold for 5, breathe out for 7. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but that's what I try and stick to, and I just try and focus on that until I've calmed down. Um, but yeah, nothing to that extent anymore, thank God. Um, so I'm getting better.
Which
But
is good.
yeah, yeah, I've been dealing with it for long enough. Um, but yes, it's I still feel like I'm learning and still trying to navigate, but um, I'm lucky now that I don't still deal with the things that I used to, because it felt like the coping mechanisms I developed um, just weren't healthy. Like with the eating, my solution became just don't eat anything, because then you have, you know, nothing to bring up. That's a gross thing to explain. But it's like you develop things that are very unhealthy. Um, so I'm glad now that I don't deal with that sort of stuff. And the way I deal with things are a healthy way of dealing with things.
So, based on your experiences, how would you rate the mental health care in your country?
Uh, not great. Um, I don't know. Out of like a 10, maybe like a 3.
That's pretty
Um,
low.
yeah, I mean, some people might have had better experiences, but me myself, my experience with it wasn't great. It felt like after I saw that first doctor, it just felt like I was doomed and I was someone that couldn't be helped at all. Um, it you know, it felt like every time I went back then when I saw the second or the third doctor, um, it just felt like every time it felt like I wasn't going to get anywhere. Um, but it is very sad how they didn't refer me to a counselor. That's something I had to go seek out on my own, or my mum had to go find out about for me. And I literally had to go in and say to a doctor, I don't want to be alive anymore, for them to say, okay, we need to actually do something about this. Um, but I know that there are some people that will go in and they'll say how they're feeling, and it's like they just throw pills at them to say, try this. Um, and some people might, the sort of mental health care that they've received might have been, very helpful, but personally for me it was shit. So a lot of it I have had to deal with on my own, which hasn't been great, and I hope other people aren't going through the same thing now, because it was very, very hard, and there were days where I questioned if it was even worth it. um, and that is a horrible way to feel.
Yeah, especially when you're just trying to get answers and the powers that be aren't really there to, back you up in any capacity.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm very lucky, um, that I am a lot better now than I was. Honestly, the antidepressants have helped. They have helped a lot, and they are probably the reason I am semi-stable. Um, but this it's not something I want to be on for the rest of my life. I
Ditto.
don't want them to be like a crutch. I don't want them to be like a crutch and something I have to have in order to live my life. Um, so yeah.
So, um, do you see yourself like weaning off of it within like 5 years or so, or do you have like a plan for that? Because I don't think anything like that has been brought up on the podcast before of antidepressants. Because I know that for some medications, there's a whole process on like how do you get off of it after a period of time, and when do you know you're okay, and all this other stuff. So I'm just curious
Yeah,
about like what's your plans looking like with that?
I have thought about weaning off of it, but it's been very difficult trying to. I can't go to like the actual doctor's clinic at the moment because of all the COVID stuff that's happening. Um, but I would like to probably, if not this year, then next year, um, wean myself off them. So go down a dose and then eventually just lower it down until I'm at nothing. Because like I said a minute ago, it's not something I want to be on forever, and it's not something I want to be taking just to live, because it's not a way to live. Um, but I also I feel like now it's kind of like a placebo, where it's like I'm taking it now because I feel like it helps.
Mm.
Um, so I don't want to be taking them if I don't necessarily need them. But yeah, I don't want to do anything without my doctor say so. So I don't want to lower the dose myself. Um, so, so yes, when everything's all fine with the world and I'm able to actually go see a doctor face to face, I will probably start weaning myself off of them.
Speaking of the pandemic, and this is something that I've um, asked, I think the majority of the people that have been on this podcast, what's the pandemic been like on your mental health? Like, can't talk. How have you been coping with it?
It's been very hard. I mean, some days are better than others. I'm the sort of person that I wasn't too like social anyway. Um, but being able to go to the office and see my colleagues, I miss that, and it's has felt very lonely at times. And I'm lucky that I don't live alone and I have my family around me, so I have never been completely alone. But sometimes you do feel like I just want to see my friends. I just want to give them a hug. Um, and I think being stuck inside, like I said before, that being inside doesn't bother me too much because I don't go out all that much anyway. I can't talk now. Um,
It spreads.
but yeah, it spreads. Um, but I feel like there are some times where it's like being stuck inside makes you want to go outside. It makes you want to be around people because you haven't been able to do that for so long. So there have definitely been some days where I've felt like complete rubbish because I'm just I don't want to be stuck in here anymore, and it feels like staring at these same four walls. I'm going insane. Um, but there are other days where I'm just sort of like, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna get through it. It's just another day of this shit, but it's one day closer to normal, I guess. So I try to think of it that way. Um, but I think it was a lot worse in the beginning. Now I've sort of grown used to it, and it's I don't want to say it's a new normal, but it's something that I have adapted to. So it's not as bad as it was. Um, but I know a lot of people have had it very, very bad. I think the main thing is I just miss my wider family. Like I miss seeing my nan and my aunts and my uncles. Um, I think that's the main thing. Um,
Yeah, but other than that, it's like SSDD, same shit, different day.
Literally, yeah. I mean, I'm still lucky that I am able to work from home, and I'm still able to speak to my colleagues even if I'm not able to see them in person. And like I said, I'm with my family. I'm not by myself. So that has made it a lot easier. It's it's been a lot easier to cope because I've had that sort of stuff to keep me going. But if I wasn't able to work from home, or I was living by myself, I think it would be a very different story. And I really feel for the people who have been on their own through this, because it's not nice to feel like you're completely alone. Like I know how they feel.
Yeah, it's like the void is coming for me. It's coming for everybody. Okay, I'm just gonna sit here now.
The void is coming. There is no way out. Yeah.
So, yeah, yep, I'm feeling that. So what would you say to people that are going through, you know, a similar situation to you?
Um, I will say it's going to sound very cliche, but things do get better. You will come out the other side of it a completely different person. You'll come out a better person. Um, I know things are hard right now, but you will learn to deal with it. And you know, you like I said, you will come out of it the other side. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. We don't know how long this specific journey is going to last, but you will get to the end of it. Um, it's it's not something I would wish on anyone. Dealing with the things that I've dealt with, because it's made things really hard. Um, but I I have come out of it a much stronger person. So anybody who's going through a similar thing or the same thing, I'm sure they will come out the other side a much stronger person. Everybody else on this podcast has come out of it a much stronger person. Um, so just hang in there. Everything's going to be okay.
Well, to add on to that, it's like I sure hope so. I hope I haven't made it worse for people. Just throwing
Yeah.
that out there.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, I think something like this podcast is great because this is something I would have loved to have had when definitely in the early days of what the hell was going on. Um, this I feel like this is nice because there are people out there that are going through a similar thing to you. You feel like you're not completely alone in it, and I feel like that's why um towards the beginning I felt so alone because it didn't feel like anybody else was going through that same thing. I felt like I was going mental, um and felt like there was something seriously wrong with me because I didn't know of anybody else that was dealing with it. For all I know, there could have been so many people around me dealing with it, but they were just keeping it to themselves as well because they didn't know what to do with it, just like I was. So, something like this, I think it's a great way to show people that they're not alone and there are people that are going through this with them. So, yeah, if I'm able to help people in any kind of way by telling them about my trauma and laughing at it, then, I'm gonna do that.
And that makes you really brave in my book. Seriously.
Thank you. I don't feel it some days, but it's funny to look back at stuff and just be like, it's so good to see that I'm a different person now and that I'm no longer that. So
I like how you said
anybody
that.
who is, I'm not that. I'm not that creature. It's like I picture old anxiety-ridden Hannah as like a golem sat in the corner, just like, just like I'm not that thing anymore.
Holding on to your serotonin like, my precious.
It's like it's a little goblin sat in the corner. Just like we don't talk about that anymore. We don't know her. She gone.
That's a fun way to
Very
refer to
weird
it
and
too, like your
confusing.
inner goblin.
Yeah, it's it's very, very strange that because I've mentioned how it felt like I was a completely separate thing from my body or my brain, but now it's like I look at it in that way, but in a better way. It's like that person. It's like it was a separate person, and they're gone now. That I don't deal with that sort of stuff anymore. So that's a nice way to look at it. Obviously, um, I still have moments, but it is nowhere near as bad as it used to be, which I'm really thankful for.
It's like the goblin came, partied hard, and now you're picking up the mess.
Yeah, literally. And it definitely has left a few internal scars, and there are still things that they'll come back to me at certain times, different events that happened and made made it all worse. Um, but you just push that stuff to the back of your mind, and you think, it's something that's happened. I can't change it, but I got through it. And I'm a stronger person now because of it.
Have you met other people with the same conditions that you have?
When I got to uni, one of the girls in my classes, I found that she had anxiety and she started the medication before I did. So, in a way, it was kind of good that I had someone who could give me a heads up about all of the side effects and stuff. Like I just started taking it, and I'd be like, it made me more anxious, and it also made me space out on other days. So I would just like completely just like go blank. I would completely go blank some days. So it was helpful that she knew how I was feeling, um, and it was helpful to talk to someone who wasn't a counselor, or like I'd be able to say just like, this is a weird way I'm feeling. She's just like, oh my god, same. So it was a real weird way to bond. But it was also nice to know that I had someone that was going through the same thing.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. You had your own like friend slash guinea pig, because I don't know a whole lot of people that have that.
I'm just like, are you okay? She's just like, yeah, I'm just spaced out as fuck. I don't like I don't know what. And then like a week later, I'd be the same, and she'd just be like, yeah, I know what's going on. Um, there would be times when I mentioned myself running out of lectures and going and disappearing. She'd be the one that would come after me a lot of the time, or like she'd know where to look because she'd been to those same places. So she'd I'd disappear somewhere, and she'd show up 5 minutes later with my water bottle and just be like, "You're all right, mate. You're okay. You're not missing much." Um, so that's quite funny.
And it's like, oh, we're the same species. We get it.
Like, yeah, I get you, fam. So I know what's going on.
So, do you think if you didn't have somebody like that with you while you were going to uni, that you would have been able to continue school or keep doing what you're doing?
Oh God. Um, Even with someone there at times, I did feel like, oh my God, do I even bother anymore? Is it even worth it? Um, so I can't imagine what it would have been like if there wasn't someone there. I think it would have just continued on as it was when I started, really, and I didn't know anybody. And when I did feel like alone, it would be something that I would keep to myself, unless I had to tell somebody about it. Um, but it just ended up being my friend group that knew, and then my personal tutor from uni. Um, and still, there are people that aren't aware of it. I've spoken to very few people about it because, well, I don't bring it up as much anymore because it's not something I deal with as much. But back then, um, it was weird. I didn't want to speak about it because I felt like, oh, people will think I'm insane if I talk about these things. Um, but it's like a double-edged sword that way then, because if you don't tell people how you're feeling, they can't help you. But you feel like they won't get it anyway, so I can't tell them. Um, but it was definitely a huge help to have a, a friend there that knew what it was that was going on inside my head. It's just like, maybe I'm not so insane after all. Someone else is also going through this, so maybe I'm not that weird. Um, yeah, I don't know what the hell would have happened if I didn't have her there. I'm very thankful that she was there and that I had someone to talk to about the weird thing up there. I'm pointing to my head for those of you that don't know what I'm doing. I forget nobody can see me; they could just hear my voice. Um,
It's like, but I can.
but I can. I see everything. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's
But yes.
it's really relatable. And thank you for answering that question, because I know for me, when I was at university, I don't think I could have gone through it if it hadn't been for one of my best friends in the world that I met there. Um,
Hmm.
it's funny. She actually hated me at the beginning of the whole thing. She did not like me, not one little bit. And then eventually, though, I don't know, I took one look at her and I said, I'm going to make you my friend. And I spent like a whole year trying to get her to warm up to me and trying to get her to like me. And
Hmm.
then one day she was having a bad day and I was having a bad day. And we kind of broke down and we shared that, hey, I'm going through depression and anxiety. And I'm like, hey, I'm going through PTSD. Let's help each other. I mean, I think universities and such, they're expensive, but they do kind of provide a gateway to meeting more people like yourself that
Yeah.
have gone through similar, trials and tribulations and such like that.
Yeah. And there are other friends that I had in uni that were also dealing with those kind of things but didn't really speak about it. Um, my best friend now, she dealt with the same sort of stuff. Um, and there are things that we can still talk about. But it was nice to have someone and sort of bond over our trauma, I guess.
Trauma
And
bonding.
just like yeah, I have this problem, and then she's just like, oh my god, mate, I was literally doing that yesterday. um so wild sort of things, but yes, it was nice to have that. But there are still some parts of it that I don't speak to anyone about, like I mentioned earlier, with some traumatic events happening there, like no one knows about those. um so yeah,
Is that
there's some
something that
stuff I keep to myself.
is that something that you are willing to dive into, or you're not feeling that?
I can dive into it because it is a part of the journey. So I feel like one of the things that made the anxiety so much worse, because I think at first it started out when I was in school. It was like an insecurity that sort of turned into anxiety, and there was sort of like this thing in my brain of just like, oh my god, everybody hates me, they're going to be judging me because of this. um and it felt like I started noticing more things that made me think, well, they hate me, I have nobody. um but then there was an event that happened that just, it made everything so much worse. So I was walking out of school one day. I just finished school, and my school was right next to an Asda, so a big supermarket. And I was walking around, and as I was walking around, a boy just like came up behind me, and just started talking to me. I had no clue who he was. So already that freaked me out a little bit. I was just like, who is this dude? Um, and after like a couple minutes, I was just like, okay, this is fine. He was just talking to me about school and such. And my mum was meant to be picking me up from the Asda car park next door because they weren't allowed to come into the school car park at the time. And she wasn't there. So he was saying that like he lived nearby. So he was like, oh, I don't mind waiting with you until she arrives. Um, and I was just very uncomfortable. So I was just like, um, yeah, I'm fine to wait on my own. And he's just like, no, I'll stand with you. And he was just asking more and more questions. So I tried to make out that I needed to go into the shop for something, and he was just like, "Oh, I'll come in with you, and I'll walk around with you." And he wouldn't leave me alone. So I was just getting more and more freaked out and felt like I couldn't get away from this person. But at least in the shop there were people everywhere. Um, but I remember him like handing me his phone and asking me to put my number in it, and the screen was all smashed. I remember the screen being smashed, and I was just like, "Oh shit, this guy is just a bit." I shouldn't judge, but it part of I had this thought in my mind of, should I give him a fake number or should I just put my actual number in, because I don't know what's going to be the best way out of this. Um, but I did put my actual number in there, and then when we came out of the shop, my mum ended up being there. So I got into the car, and literally before we even pulled off, he texted me straight away. Um, and he from then on he just wouldn't leave me alone. Um, I ended up getting home, and I didn't see my phone like 10 minutes or so, because I was just telling mum about my day, and he was just like, "Where did you go, Hannah? What's going on? What's going on?" Um, so he would just keep going on and on, wouldn't stop texting me, and he started following me around school as well. So that was very strange. So after a while, I just ended up saying, uh, you know, you're freaking me out a little bit. Please stop messaging me. Um, Otherwise, I'm gonna block your number. So he stopped texting me, but still continued to follow me around the school. And I was terrified of going anywhere then around the school. Like, I didn't even want to go to the toilet by myself in case he was there. There were a lot of days I would come out of my form room, and he would be just stood outside, just like looking in and watching me, um, which was very, very weird. And there was the one day that really frightened me. I was walking out of our like communal sixth form study area, um, about to like walk out of school, and he was coming down the other side of the corridor. And when he came like parallel to where me and my friends were, he like let out some huge, like a groan almost. He just went, "Ugh," and like slammed his fists up against the plastic display, I guess, that was on the wall. So he just like smashed his hands against that, and that freaked me out. But then whenever he would see me around school, he would like bump shoulders with me, like in like a quite harsh way. And this was just because I'd said to this dude, like, "You're freaking me out. Please just leave me alone." So that freaked me out, and you know, for a long time, I didn't want to go anywhere on my own, even around the school, because I didn't feel safe at all. And I told my head of year, and he didn't do anything. Because we ended up finding out that that guy wasn't even a part of my school. He just came over to our school for one of his lessons, because our high school was in collaboration with a couple other high schools. So he went to a completely different high school, but he would just hang around in our school sometimes because he had friends there. But it felt like everywhere I went, then I was just seeing him everywhere. So that was quite traumatic.
Yeah, no
Uh,
kidding.
yeah, but I think that was what kicked up the anxiety. That's what made it really, really bad, because it just made me scared of everything and everyone. Um, and I think that's what started up the panics then. It made me just very scared of everything, and it was just like I wanted to try and hide myself away from the world then, so something like that didn't happen again. Um, and stuff like that still kind of affects me. Um, but yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like that that didn't make much sense, and I just rambled about nothing.
No,
But
no, you're fine.
yeah,
I wanted to check in with you. Are you doing okay?
yeah, I'm okay. Um, but it's something like that. Sometimes that's one of the things that will come back to me every now and again, and will just make me think like, oh God. I just think like this is something that can still happen. But in a way, I'm glad I brought it up and I've spoken about it, because it feels like this is a very relevant issue right now, with the whole Sarah Everard thing. And there are people every day There are girls that are being preyed upon, and you know, just guys, educate yourselves, please.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like, don't be creeping.
yeah, like if you want to get to know someone, fine, but just don't go about it in a creepy way. Don't try and, force someone into something if they're not feeling it. And please, for the love of God, do not make someone feel bad for rejecting you. Because I feel like that's where it came from. He started, becoming hostile with me um, because I basically said to him, "Leave me alone. You're making me uncomfortable." Um, no one should be made to feel guilty or whatever
Yeah,
for doing what makes you feel comfortable. Um, yeah,
I'm
that's the
happy
thing
that,
that happened.
yeah, I'm really happy that it didn't escalate into something to where you got seriously hurt.
Yeah, well, this is another thing. I count myself very lucky because there are some people that it has been far worse. I'm lucky in a way that I was just followed and uh, I'm not trying to discredit the experience because it is still something that is quite traumatic.
Yeah,
But I'm lucky in a way that it was just being followed and like harassment really, and that it didn't escalate into something way worse. And like you said, that I didn't get hurt in any kind of way. Um, yeah,
yeah, because I'm
that's
I'm looking at it from over here in America because we've had horror stories with girls rejecting guys, and then they come around and they shoot up people, and it's
yeah,
horrible. It's horrifying, and nobody should uh, no nobody, regardless of your gender, should not be pressured to date somebody just because, oh God, they can go off and kill people or hurt other people or hurt you if you don't,
yeah,
give in to them.
yeah. It's not nice,
Yeah.
but
Sorry, I'm just like, are you okay?
yeah, I'm alright. I don't talk about it a lot. Very few people know about that experience. But I feel like that is one of the moments that made it worse because it was one of those things that made me very scared of people, um, and made me not want to get to know people at all or form any relationships with anybody, which then didn't help with the whole loneliness thing because I wasn't making any new friends, especially then when I got to uni. So then, because I wasn't making any new friends, it was just, oh God, I really am alone because I don't have anybody. Um, and it just, it just made me scared of everything. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
It, to me, it makes sense because that kind of stuff is traumatic. I mean, the way I look at it, trauma is trauma.
Yeah.
If it freaked you out to that point, it's valid.
And it definitely sent me into like some weird spiral then. I started panicking about stupid things. I don't think I ever panicked over a leaf though. I'm sorry. Something like that has never happened to me.
Yeah,
um
you're like, I'm screwed up, but thank God I'm not you, Jay.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all
uh,
good. It's all
I,
good.
find that, I find that quite funny. um but stuff like that. It's just, oh God. Yes. As I look at experiences like that and I think, okay, so it was valid the way I was feeling, but then sometimes I do look back on the way I reacted to things and think, what were you doing? Um,
Kind of going back to that meme. Why are you running? Why are you running?
are you running? I
Well, we are coming to the tail end of the podcast, so there any final words you want to say? Anything you want to put out there?
don't know. Sorry if I didn't make any sense. I hope
Uh,
this was still
a- a-
enjoyable.
I'm going to stop you right there. You are doing great. This is amazing. You're being vulnerable. You're sharing your story. You're doing awesome, Boo.
Thank you. That's good to hear. It's good that I wasn't just talking nonsense for an hour. Um, but I suppose for any last words to put out there, I hope me sharing my experiences helps people feel like they're not alone, and if they're going through a similar thing, you know, you are going to get through it. Whatever it is you're going through, you are going to get through it and you will come out of it a much stronger person. I'm still a bit of a mess, but I'm better than I was. So, just keep on going, keep fighting. You're strong enough to get through it and you will get through it. And my DMs are always open. So if there is anybody that is struggling with anything, if you need to chat about something, you need to vent, just you are more than welcome to speak to me. And I'm here to listen, because when I was going through all of this shit, definitely towards the beginning, it felt like I had no one to listen. And sometimes that really is all you need. So if I can be that for somebody, I am more than happy to be there for you.
Well spoken. And also, to add on to that, the way I look at it, people like us with mental health issues, we're like cryptids. We are the hot mess monsters.
Yeah, we definitely are.
Well,
Wow.
Hannah, thank you so much for your time and for, again, being vulnerable, sharing your story. I mean, it's not easy talking about this stuff, but I do hope and I do feel in my heart too that this will help out somebody. Somebody
Yes,
will
I,
listen.
I hope so.
Yeah, somebody will listen to your words and think, well, man, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I truly believe that. So thank you for taking the time to be on here.
Thank you for having
And
me on.
yeah, anytime. And yeah, guys, that was our episode. Thank you for staying here from beginning to end. And also to please consider supporting the podcast. You can go on to anchor.fm and there's like pledge levels or some shit like that where you can donate money. Um, Also too, I post the episodes up on YouTube. So if you can't access them here on Anchor, you can go onto YouTube and watch Peer2Peer now. And also too, if you want to be on the podcast and share your story with mental health, my email will be uh, shared on future podcast episodes on Anchor and also on YouTube. So be on the lookout for that. Again, this was Peer2Peer, and we interviewed the awesome Tiny Hannah. Thank you again for being on here.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next time.